Emily, I want to let you know this has been a pretty peaceful crowd for the most part up until this last few minutes. What you're seeing is live pictures of a tent. That tent belonged to a group that supported right to work legislation. That is being torn down by protesters here on the Capitol lawn. We are looking for some sort of police presence. We're kind of in the middle of everything right now, but that is being torn down right now. You see these protesters live as we speak. The vote has not happened yet. We are waiting for word on the vote upstairs, and we will hear on that. We will break into programming as soon as that happens. But right now, as I'm telling you, we're seeing the first bit of unruly behavior, if you will, out on the lawn of the Capitol. For the most part, the crowds have been pretty good here. Been cooperating with police and have been loud. They've been getting their voices heard, but nothing like this. So again, we're seeing some problems right here. This is Americans for Prosperity. This is their tent. Again, Americans for Prosperity, supporters of the right to work legislation. And as you can see, some folks dancing on that tent right now. Obviously, some folks from organized labor. And again, we're right in the middle of it right now. We don't see any police officers. We don't believe anybody is inside that tent. We don't believe there's any injuries. We don't see anybody. Now they're picking it up again. It looks like somebody with some sort of marshal vest on, we believe is part of the organized labor, kind of the peacekeeping movement here to try to keep the peace. They've gotten involved now. They're going in that tent. Again, we don't believe there is anybody inside there. We don't believe there are any injuries, but they are trying to right that tent again. Again, this has been a pretty peaceful crowd up until this point. You can see it tripping over a tent pole right now. We're going to back out. We're going to let some of these folks do their work and send it back to you. We will, again, break programming as soon as we hear about that vote. Right now, we're going to go to break. Ken Grauman II and Greg Bradshaw turned down my request for an interview here at the Fremont County Detention Center. But Laura Grauman wanted to send a message to her mother back home in West Michigan. That message, I'm sorry. Cameras and recording devices aren't allowed in the Fremont County Corrections Facility. Everything was off camera, but on the record. Laura Grauman's story is not about a romanticized Bonnie and Clyde-like cross-country crime spree, but the effect one drug can have on a life. That drug is meth, a drug Laura Grauman calls evil. Quoting here, it is. This is the devil drug just like my mom told me. Grauman says she was on meth shortly after her boyfriend, Greg Bradshaw, and cousin Ken Grauman II broke out of the Lake County Prison Facility 2 weeks ago. She wanted to go with them. They warned her there was no turning back. Quoting here, once you decide you're going, you're not going back, Grauman says the two men told her. She claims Ken's girlfriend, 17-year-old Brittany Rector, was just as willing to go along. Grauman says meth will do that to you. Then came the dramatic police chase through the cornfield near Dorr, an ultralight pilot tracking their moves. Laura Grauman told me she was scared and showed me from behind the plexiglass in the jail interview room how she crouched down on the floor of the vehicle each time they got into a chase. Yet the seriousness of what was happening hadn't hit her. Again, Grauman says meth will do that to you. Quoting here, right or wrong, don't matter. The fugitives had again evaded police. They eventually made it to Kokomo, Indiana, and that's where Grauman says the fact they were in big trouble finally started to sink in. They went from state to state, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska. It all became a blur. She can't recall how many vehicles they stole along the way, but Brittany was becoming scared. Quoting here, at one point Brittany said, "Run, Laura, run," but she didn't. I asked Laura why she didn't just leave. Remember the no turning back remark? They wouldn't let me. I was afraid they'd kill me, says Laura. Finally, they made it to Canyon, Colorado. Laura says her sister lived here once. She knew it was a nice place. She and Greg also had friends here. They left a message that they were on their way. They never heard back from the couple, never had any contact. Laura's convinced it was the friends who called police, something she says she's now grateful for. On Thursday, 12 days after the ordeal began, Laura and Brittany were in their latest stolen car near the motel they were using as a hideout and meth lab. Police had surrounded the car, guns drawn. "Freeze! Put your hands in the air!" And that's when I knew it was over, says Grauman. She says she feels fortunate it ended that way. "I feel like if the cops hadn't caught us, I'd be going home in a body bag." Saturday, as she sat in the interview room, she broke down in tears several times. The 4-year-old daughter she's lost custody to is one of the people she's let down. Her mother, Dawn Morris, is another. She has a message for her mother. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I know she didn't raise me this way, and I'm sorry. You can read more of my interview with Laura Grommen at woodtv.com. In Canyon, Colorado, Joe Lafurgey, 24 Hour News 8.
Well, you can bet that the crowd tomorrow night will work hard to make the Tigers feel comfortable. And 24 Hour News 8's Joe Lafurgey is live in Detroit with a look at how the city is getting ready for the World Series. Joe?
Sue, I want you to take a look behind me. The lights are still on tonight, 11 o'clock right here at Comerica Park. A lot of activity inside the ballpark tonight. And a Grand Rapids man is part of that activity. His job to bring the game into your living room.
Inside and still run all the functions on the camera, whether you're...
Saturday night, Grand Rapids resident Gary Metcalf will have one of the best seats in the park. Even though it'll be perched high above the third baseline at Comerica, he can easily change the view.
From what, quarter mile, half mile away, you're looking at a picture that's 6 feet tall. It's amazing how...
Metcalf is a freelance camera operator, this week working for Fox Sports. He's been doing this since graduating from Central Michigan University in the late 1980s. Even though you've probably seen his work, you wouldn't recognize Metcalf. And sometimes anonymity can be a good thing, especially for some of his camera work, like the play he zoomed in on during the Lions-Green Bay game last Thanksgiving. Remember this shot?
People are a little upset with me because I had a shot that Adamakin Sue stomped down on the Green Bay Packer that cost him 2 games. So.
Metcalf's full-time job is saving lives as a Grand Rapids firefighter. The 24 hours on duty, 48 hours off duty works out well for the freelance jobs, although it's still more work than play.
There'll be specific things that you have to do the whole game, so you're in part of the environment, but you're not. You know, you can't enjoy it like a normal fan could, of course, as you are working.
And like his full-time job, sports shooting has its highs and lows. Of course, for Metcalf, a bad day in the fire department is much more difficult to shake off than a bad day at the game.
Unfortunately, to see Prince Fielder get tagged out, but that's not going to change anybody's day to a drastic degree.
And Metcalf's got a busy weekend ahead of him. He wraps up work for Fox Sports tomorrow night after the game, walks across the street Sunday morning to Ford Field to cover the Lions game for Fox Sports, and then comes back Sunday night to cover Game 4 of the World Series. Live in Detroit, Joe Lafurgey, 24 Hour News 8.